Fund development for the Down syndrome community of The Down syndrome community of Puget Sound has a mission to provide programs and resources for individuals with Down syndrome as well as their families. This includes goals to create a supportive environment for individuals with Down syndrome and their families, foster a climate of acceptance and respect, and build a strong network of groups to address issues for those living with a developmental disability. Their programs and resources include support groups, conferences, social events, and a learning program to help children with Down syndrome master literacy and numeracy. The DSC of Puget Sound was created in the 1980s as a way of educating communities and advocating for individuals with Down syndrome. Their contributions over the last 30 years have included packets for hospitals to give to new parents of children with Down syndrome, the annual Puget Sound Buddy Walk fundraiser, and various conferences and partnerships designed to build a strong and inclusive community in the Puget Sound area. In the United States, there are currently approximately 400,000 people living with Down syndrome, and about 1 in every 691 babies born in the U.S. has Down syndrome. As the national population continues to grow, there is likely to be a growing population of people with Down syndrome. As with any minority group, it is important for people with Down syndrome and their families to have a voice within their communities. A strategic fund development plan could help the DSC of Puget Sound not only continue with their current efforts, but also expand the organization to include more robust programs. The DSC of Puget Sound could also help lead the way for national efforts to transform the current U.S. educational system into one that is more inclusive of children with developmental disabilities. Recent education about Down syndrome has been largely impactful given that just 50 years ago, most babies born with Down syndrome were automatically institutionalized. Today, children with Down syndrome are raised in their own homes and live very fulfilling lives with the help of government programs like early intervention, new medical advances, and more supportive communities. While attitudes have changed and fewer people use derogatory language when referring to individuals with Down syndrome, it is important for groups like the DSC of Puget Sound to keep the momentum going. A fund development plan that attracts new donors will allow the DSC to be even more involved in area education programs, state legislatures, and national awareness campaigns. Early intervention is a government-supported program that provides services and therapy to children from 0 to 3 years of age who are diagnosed with a developmental delay or disability. The program is part of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, which was created in 2004 and authorizes government grants to institutions that provide early education services to eligible children and their families. Once children with developmental disabilities reach the age of 3, they can enter the public school system. Most schools have special education programs, but some do not. Even more disconcerting is the quality of many special education programs, particularly ones in the Seattle area. The city of Seattle stands to lose millions of dollars in federal funding because of its poor special education program that includes staffing and administration problems, as well as inattention to student learning plans. Fund development for the DSC could help give additional support and services for families who are struggling with finding early intervention or are experiencing problems with the public education system. It could also draw public attention to the need for all schools to have an adequate special education, as well as schools that can support quality, inclusive classrooms. Now let's discuss some methods for fund development. The first method of fundraising that would benefit the DSC of Puget Sound is a capital campaign. The capital campaign would raise a significantly large amount of money that is designated for a brick-and-mortar home for the DSC, which it does not currently have. The building would house administrative offices and for staff members, as well as classrooms and a teen center. Currently, the DSC board meets in various spaces around the city that are either rented or borrowed for meetings. The same is true for their learning program. A long-term home in Seattle could provide consistent space for classes, meetings, and social events. There could also be a teen center where young adults could get together for social events and to practice life skills they may need as they approach an age of independent living. While the DSC board is made up of volunteers, the capital campaign could raise funds in order to hire an administrative staff. With staff members who can focus on things like scheduling and logistics, the board members' time could be more devoted to fundraising and marketing strategies. Capital campaigns can take several years from start to finish. As previously mentioned, much time is spent researching and approaching potential donors. Much of the work is done during the quiet phase when board members and volunteers are securing pledges behind the scenes before the goals and fundraising efforts are publicly announced. Once potential donors have been discovered, more time is spent developing relationships with the prospects. Some major donors may want to volunteer with the DSC and attend several annual events before they commit to contributing a large amount of money. Working with each individual prospect can take several years and should not be rushed. Since the DSC does currently have spaces it can use in the meantime, there's plenty of time for this project to take place. Another method for fund development is email and website fundraising. This type of fundraising is appealing because it does not require face-to-face interaction and it gives donors the freedom to give on their own time and on their own terms. The DSC of Puget Sound already offers donation opportunities on their website, and they participate in online crowdfunding events like Give Big. However, a more aggressive and regular email fundraising campaign could help pay for continued programs and events. Emailing donors on a regular basis gives the DSC an opportunity to feature families in the area and tell the stories of people with Down syndrome. Regular emails also mean consistent engagement. Currently, the DSC reaches out when there are planned event fundraisers, but a monthly or quarterly email will keep supporters more involved and inspired to give. Consistent communication can also act as a regular reminder for special event fundraisers. While direct mail is still a popular form of fundraising, email fundraising can save time and money. The DSC should have a donor database with current contact information for supporters. One key to making an email fundraiser successful is to add personal touches, like sending the email from a specific person rather than the organization as a whole. The DSC board members can each draft their own version of the email to send out to portions of the donor base. This method is achievable by the DSC of Puget Sound because the board is made up of parents of children with Down syndrome, self-advocates, and community members who work with individuals who are developmentally disabled. It will be natural for the board to tell their own compelling stories about their experiences with Down syndrome. Donors can connect and relate to personal stories told by the person who is soliciting funds. The DSC of Puget Sound already has a passionate group of supporters behind them that can make fund development measures successful. As more people in the Seattle area understand Down syndrome and accept people with disabilities without prejudice or judgment, there can be more opportunities to gain donors and followers. Because the DSC is established and already has some resources available, there's plenty of time to plan a well-thought-out strategic funding approach. While it is important to still communicate some urgency with regards to the needs of children in the education system, there is no impending event that could stop the DSC from providing the services they currently offer. The biggest risk of these funding strategies is, of course, making them successful, but also maintaining funds earned. Once a capital campaign is complete, there still has to be money coming in to keep the building and staff running. There will have to be ongoing fundraising efforts in addition to the email fundraising to maintain a brick and mortar facility. The mission of the Down syndrome community of Puget Sound is to provide a safe and supportive environment for individuals with Down syndrome and their families. The fund development strategies support this mission because they provide even more resources to the DSC and to the families it supports. These methods also open up the DSC to the Puget Sound community at large, so the whole area can be better educated about Down syndrome and more involved in creating a supportive environment. Running both a capital campaign and an email campaign can have high upfront costs. Many organizations choose to hire a consultant to help with a capital campaign, which can be expensive. Email fundraisers require organizations to invest software programs and website maintenance that can also be costly. Dealing with the initial costs could prove challenging for the DSC of Puget Sound. If the development efforts are successful, however, the payoff would be substantial. The capital campaign and email fundraiser would help the DSC create new programs as well as hiring paid administrative staff members. Most importantly, the efforts would expand their donor base and attract new supporters for future fundraisers. The organizational impacts of the fund development plan include a greater exposure of the DSC, which benefits all people with developmental disabilities. As more people in the community are educated about Down syndrome, the community can become more inclusive, more supportive, and more culturally rich in diversity. The efforts made in the Puget Sound area can gain national attention and have an influence on government programs like education and health benefits. The Down syndrome community and the families it represents can truly change the world with support from their friends and neighbors. In conclusion, the Down syndrome community of Puget Sound already has a rich program that has helped thousands of families. With some new fundraising efforts, the group can increase their reach and expand their already successful nonprofit organization. A capital campaign can give them a permanent home, and an email fundraiser can bring in steady support from loyal donors. These additional efforts can help the DSC with their mission to foster the most supporting and nurturing environment for people with Down syndrome and their families.